Gianluca. First of all, I would like to thank Paolo and the whole Lear team for inviting me to take part in this interesting conference in this very nice city of Rome. As Gianluca said, I tried to split my presentation into two big parts. One would be merger control in recession time, obviously from the Spanish perspective, and that will look into issues like procedures, remedies, and in particular the banking restructuring in Spain. And then the second part, I will try to focus on the priorities for the future, again from the Spanish perspective, and in that sense I will try to describe you the new agency and the enormous institutional change that is taking place in Spain with the creation of a single agency which merged the antitrust and the regulatory agencies. And then from the European perspective, I would like to give an overview of what's going on with the recent public consultation launched by DG Comp on minority shareholdings and referrals. So starting with the first part, merger control in recession time, the Spanish Competition Commission, like most competition authorities, has firmly defended in the last years that there's no, albeit the economic downturn, there's no really justification for a more lenient approach on competition laws. Quite on the contrary, its reports and its decisions tend to insist on the fact that introducing greater competition is really the key to get out of this economic situation. Because we all know that the return to growth depends largely on the way we reallocate resources, and in that sense, greater competition plays a key role. And also, we have stressed the idea that public administration at the same time has to be more aware of the way it can influence on the economic activity of the undertakings, and in that sense, we have to review our administrative procedures in order to reduce, if possible, the administrative burden and avoid distorting competition or economic freedom unnecessarily. So, in the merger control, I think we were trying to keep fixed or stick to strict substantive standards, but we are becoming more flexible regarding procedures. Also, some changes in the design of remedies or the way we monitorize these remedies once the mergers are cleared. And also, in the case of Spain, due to the restructuring of the financial sector, which started in 2010, we have received a great number of mergers in this sector, which, however, have not raised competition concerns because of the market definition, which is national in its scope, and it's also very atomized in its nature. So, moving first to the procedure, as most competition authorities, the Spanish Competition Authority can adopt soft law, that's guidance and notices, to assist the interpretation key issues relating to Spanish merger regime. In that sense, in autumn 2011, we launched our guidelines on short-form notifications, and because experience acquired during the first 3 years, we had the Competition Act coming into force in 2007, and after 3 years, we realized that although the thresholds were defined, there was not really a lot of guidance on how we were going to deal with short forms in comparison to full-form notifications. So the rationale was to explain that really where there is no complex economic analysis behind those mergers, the procedures are going to be shorter, and we're going really to restrict the stopping the clock or interruptions with the timing in those cases. So really the guidelines clarify the differences between both procedures and highlight the objectives of shortening the time frame. And also we try to introduce why in some cases even we are fulfilling the thresholds for short forms. However, we need more information to make the economic assessment of the mergers. For example, in the cases of mergers dealing with regulated sectors where we need the compulsory but non-binding report from regulators, it is necessary to sometimes gather more information from the parties, and in those cases we ask for a full notification form and not for a short form. So we wanted really to explain this with our guidance, and I think it was at the moment in this economic situation to give more clarity and legal certainty on this issue. Another second important aspect, obviously, in economic downturn for mergers is time. The Spanish Competition Commission has paid special attention to this issue, and we can say that we have authorized most of our mergers in phase 1 with an average decision-making period below 1 month, which is in fact the deadline for phase 1 mergers. So we've really taken seriously this issue. And Pre-notification system has helped a lot to reduce the timing because these informal discussions before the formal notification help a lot to identify which information we are missing, what other parts have to be completed by the parties. So we encourage really the pre-notification system to reduce this timing, especially now that the parties need really a quick clearance. Moving to the second issue regarding merger control and rescission time, I wanted just to go through a couple of cases where remedy designs or the monetization of these remedies has taken into account the economic and financial situation in the case of Spain, because it's probably more than ever necessary to, let's say, keep the remedies which are necessary to tackle those competition concerns, but at the same time be flexible in other parts where we can be flexible. Especially we take into account that, for example, in the case of structural remedies, it's more difficult now probably to find an appropriate purchaser who has the financial strength to buy the invested assets. So I wanted to go on a couple of cases we had in the Spanish Competition Authority to tell you how we have dealt with this increased flexibility regarding remedy design. One of the cases is the Gas Natural Unión Fenosa case, which you might probably know, or at least you will know that Gas Natural is the gas market leader in Spain, who acquired Unión Fenosa, which was one of the main players in the electricity market. Both of them are vertically integrated companies, both in the gas and in the electricity sector, because both of them had entered the other market. Gas Natural was the most successful entry player in the electricity markets, and Unión Fenosa was also an important new entrant, maverick in the gas markets. So when we looked at this transaction in phase one, after market tests and everything, we realized that the transaction could lessen competition in many areas. The most biggest concern was in the supply of gas to Spain, because most of the competitors, both in the gas and the electricity markets, in the retail markets, depend on the gas coming from Gas Natural. But we also had some concerns in the retail supply to end consumers, because it was strengthening again Gas Natural's supply market shares, both to combined cycles, producing electricity, and also to domestic consumers. There was also a simultaneous presence in gas and electricity networks following the merger. And also there was a concern in the electricity sector because apart from the horizontal overlap, we were getting more symmetric structures between Gas Natural and the incumbents. So we had in the beginning, before the merger, a divergent incentive between Gas Natural and the electricity incumbents, and now we would have possible coordinated effects. So these unilateral effects and coordinated effects took us to look at possible remedies submitted by the parties. And, well, what we found in the end was this couple of remedies, which was the divestiture of 600,000 gas distribution points and businesses, that is the customers associated to those points, in the provinces where there were overlaps between the electricity and the gas networks. We made compulsory for Gas Natural to supply during the two first years gas in market conditions in case the purchaser had no other gas supply, but with the intention that after those 2 years the purchaser would have enough power to negotiate gas supplies different from those of Gas Natural. We also accepted a 2,000 megawatts divestment of power generation in combined cycle, because it was the technology which affected both markets at the same time, electricity and gas. And we also asked Gas Natural to sell some of its stakes, because I forgot to tell you before, but Gas Natural had a 5% stake in Enagas, which is the gas system operator, and at the same time, Unión Fenosa had a 5% stake in Cepsa, which is the main competitor of Gas Natural's parent company, which is Repsol. So there were sort of minority shareholdings, which we will also look at to this issue. In this transaction, we had to look at carefully. So we thought that these remedies were suitable, sufficient, and proportionate to get our objective, which was to get a new entrant in the market with sufficient, a minimum efficient scale of consumers that will allow him to negotiate in the upstream markets the enough gas to separate, to get independent supplies from Gas Natural. The interesting thing here regarding merger control and recession time is the monetarization procedure that has followed this clearance. We had a request by Gas Natural to grant an exception on the only pending remedy, which was the 2,000 megabytes of electricity generation. But the Council rejected this exemption because it thought first that the Gas Natural arguments were the figures were unrealistic about the demand slump and the capacity and everything. Also because many of these issues had already been taken into account during our assessment of the remedies. And third, because there was a figure of the remedies which hadn't started to play its role, which was the divestiture trustee. So we thought we had to give him the opportunity to find a purchaser before granting an exemption to Gas Natural. However, there was a second request by Gas Natural last year asking for a flexibility in the remedies in terms of changing the assets which were still pending. We had still 800 megabytes pending of the divestiture, and he asked us to change it for another 300,000 consumer points. We made a very careful assessment of this possible change in the remedies, and we got to the conclusion that the effect would be equivalent. We would again find a purchaser reinforcing its power to buy gas from outside Spain, independent from Gas Natural. At the same time, this would accelerate the process. So the Council of the Spanish Competition Authority accepted this change. And I think this is a clear example of how in recession time, where maybe it's very difficult to sell one type of assets instead of others, we can find other solutions which are more flexible and at the same time ensure effective competition and implementation of the remedies. Another 50 minutes, thank you. Another example is in the rice business case. I will go very quickly through this case. It was the main leader in the transformation and sale of rice, Ebro, who was acquiring full control of SOS, which is the second player in this market, and was in particular active in the only narrow market, the round rice, where Ebro wasn't there. So there were again a couple of horizontal unilateral effects and also coordinated effects. In particular, they were especially worried about the unilateral effects of possible price increase of due to the mass stock products of Ebro. So when we went into analyzing the possible commitments, we accepted the proposal by the parties to sell small regional brands, and especially to sell an exclusive license of the Nomen brand. We wanted them to really divest the brand Nomen, but they argued that it was going to be very difficult in that time, it was in 2011, to find someone with enough financial muscle to buy this enormous brand. So they convinced us that we looked at other mergers at the European level, where an exclusive license for a long period, in this case it was 10 years, could have the same structural effect. That is, that it would strengthen the competitor, it would allow him to make rebranding strategies before the end of those 10 years, and also because there was a call option during the 10 years, it would have the incentives to keep on investing in that brand. So we thought that would be a reasonable remedy instead of the divestiture, and we accepted this proposal. And also we accepted, or we introduced, in this case, a monitoring trustee, unlike what we had done with Gas Natural, to ensure that all the process, all the assets were managed by the monitoring trustee until the buyer was found. And in case the parties failed to find a buyer, it would be the monitoring trustee who would transform into a divestment trustee and try to sell the assets. So again, I think this is an example of how we can flexibilize a little bit the remedy implementation in recession time. Very quickly, moving to the banking sector in Spain, as you probably know, due to the financial situation, the bank sector in Spain has been under an intense restructuring, reducing the number of institutions, of commercial and savings banks and branches. To give you an example, you can see there are some figures. In 2009, we had 50 banks, now we have only 15, and in 2010, we had 45 banks, and now currently there are only 2. And the reduction is also clear in the number of branches. For example, in 2012, the number of offices closed was nearly 2,000 offices were closed. This bank restructuring has had obviously an impact on merger control, because in the framework of these structural changes, there was a large number of mergers which were filed into the Competition Commission, and that made that changed the order of the sectors being where more mergers are analyzed by the Spanish Competition Authority, and the financial intermediation came at the top of these sectors. However, it must be said that most of these mergers were cleared, all of them in fact were cleared in phase one, because the market of the retail banking, where really the effects, there could be some competition concerns, is of a national dimension, and most of these savings banks are regional, so there weren't really a lot of overlaps. We did have one merger in 2000 this year, in fact, ending with Remedies, but it was not really due to the overlap, horizontal overlap in the retail banking, but due to structural links between competitors in another market, in the water management services, where both the acquiring and the target company had minority shareholdings, and therefore, in the end, the merged entity would have minority shareholdings in two potential competitors. So that was really the only case where we found a little bit of competition concern, and it wasn't in fact in the retail banking market, but in another related market. This is just a chart to show you the enormous number of banks that have been changed, that have merged, and that now we, as I said before, we have only 15 from the 45 starting at the beginning. Moving on to the priorities for the future, I just wanted to go through the main key elements of this institutional framework, which is facing full transformation in Spain. There's been a new published act this year in June, which creates a new agency, the National Commission of Markets and Competition, which eliminates 8 agencies, merging the antitrust and the 7 sectoral regulators. I understand you're surprised because we don't understand either why gambling is there, for example. It's a bit striking, but it's true that although gambling agency wasn't created yet formally, it was written it was going to be created, and this new act says that we are taking the gambling, the potential gambling agency, but this so far the regulations dealing with gambling have been taken again by the minister. So in fact, the CNMC won't have nothing to do with gambling, although in the act it says we are also merging with the gambling agency. So the most important thing is that it retains most of the powers of the merged agencies, in particular with regard to competition law. It will entirely apply the Competition Act, so nothing is going back to the minister. It's not the same in the case of the regulators, because obviously the directives are being observed, but some of other regulations are coming back to the ministers. And it will be fully effectively acting on the 6th of October 2013. This is more or less the way it will work. It will have a chairman, a deputy chairman, and 8 other council members divided into 2 chambers, a competition chamber looking obviously at the competition issues, and regulatory chamber looking at the sectoral issues. And then 4 big divisions, competition investigation division, which is in fact the same as the actual enforcement body in the Spanish Competition Authority, and then an energy division, a telecoms and audiovisual division, and a transport, which includes trains and air transport, and postal investigation division. The telecom would also look at broadcasting and everything. And that's the way that it will be supported with the budget. The thing is that each chamber, the members of each chamber will be changing from one chamber to another. We don't know yet the timings. And although each chamber will focus on its areas, one of the chamber can challenge or can oppose to the decision taken by the other chamber. And in that case, the decisions will go up to the council. So that's where the ministers, the affected ministers are working now to make sure that this works all right, although there may be opposition from one chamber to another, and that we don't give rise to delays or any other undesired effects from this merger. But quite on the contrary, they're looking to internalize the positive synergies of getting all together, and at the same time trying to avoid these possible time delays. Regarding mergers, I would say that the only thing that will be changed is that before we had to ask, for example, in the case of energy, for a non-binding but compulsory report to the energy regulator. We suppose that this report will now be internalized, and it will be a question of coordinating the investigation, the competition division with the energy division, or competition division with the telecom division. and try to make things work when we issue our report to the competition chamber. And from the European perspective, it's 10 years since the application of the Regulation 139 on mergers regime. So the Commission thinks that it's a good moment to review the application of this regime and to try to see if there's some room for improvement. And it has recently, last week, in fact, launched this public consultation called Towards a More Effective EU Merger Control in this framework of better regulation, which deals with two aspects, referrals and minority shareholdings. With regard to referrals, it deals with, in particular, with the cases where the member states are competent, but the cases are reallocated to the Commission. That is Article 4.5 referrals, pre-notification referrals, and Article 22 post-notification referrals. I think really the concerns might be, or the interesting part might be regarding Article 22, because Article 4.5 obviously is something that the parties are looking for when they ask for this referral. However, on Article 22, there can be a little bit more concern between the parties and the competition authorities. We have to say that the rationale for Article 22 has evolved. Before we had this Dutch clause that by which some European members did not have a merger regime, so it was good to have these referrals to avoid competition concerns taking part in some places where there was no competition regime, and therefore by sending the merger to the DG.Com, we would avoid these problems. However, this has evolved. Most member states, except for Luxembourg, have a merger control regime. So really the rationale is now in another place. It's in where is really the locus of the competition concern? Is it in national narrow markets, or is it in widespread European markets? Do we have cross-border effects? Are we looking to a remedy package which would have to be coherent between member states? And in those cases, the best placed authority is probably the European Commission. So since 2004, it has been really a corrective instrument to ensure that they will have the one-stop shop rule, and only the Commission is reviewing this type of mergers and reducing the risk of conflicting decisions, increasing administrative efficiency, and also the burdens for parties of having to do multi-filings in different languages and different places. The Commission, however, is aware of the risks and inconveniences of these referrals, not only the Commission, obviously the national competition authorities, like legal uncertainty, because it, in fact, it's an artificial extension. And nowadays, with the current merger regulation, even a member state with not being competent can ask or can join an Article 22 referral, which is something a bit strange if you read it like that. There's no, there can be partial referrals, one member state joining the referral and others not, so there will be parallel reviews between the merger, the DG.Com and the national competition authorities retaining jurisdiction. Also the timing, there can be some delays due to double notifications, first in the member states and then to the Commission, other burdens, etc. So I think the Commission and member states have tried to tackle these risks, and they have issued first the Commission notice on case referral in 2005, giving some guidance on this. Then there was a communication in general for the application of Regulation 139, and this regulation obviously was acknowledged the risks and inconveniences of Article 22 and said that maybe there should be some changes, but didn't really insist a lot on the issue. At the same time, it said that it was an exceptional clause. I mean, taking jurisdiction from member states obviously is an exception, so it can only be applied in very critical cases where clearly the Commission is best positioned, and the figures prove that that's the case, that only it's very exceptional, this Article 22 referral. And also in 2011, the best practices of cooperation between member states were also launched in order to ensure how we are going to deal with each other in terms of exchange of confidential, non-confidential information, timings, etc. What is new in this aspect is this public consultation, which wants to streamline the process to avoid delays, dispatch referrals, and really ensure that the rationale behind the Article 22 is the one-stop shop rule, and avoid also possible forum shopping due to different national procedures. So really, the proposed reform for Article 4.5 is to reduce timing by eliminating this first recent submission to the Commission by the parties to ask for this 4.5 referral. So all parties wanting to have a 4.5 referral will first notify the Commission, and the first 15 days for the member states consultation will be in parallel to the first 15 days of the Commission's investigation. That will reduce, obviously, procedures. Maybe the paper says that maybe this time, This timing could be reduced to 10 days, but then the member states would be informed about the printification discussions. And the proposed reform for Article 22 is really to give the European Commission EEA-wide jurisdiction in case of a referral. So if a member state asks for a referral and no other, if a competent member state asks for referral and no competent member state opposed to the referral, all the merger will go to the European Commission and avoid these partial referrals. Obviously, we're respecting the member state veto. If there's a veto, then the member state will review, the competent member state will review the part of the merger. But it's really to try to force that if there's a referral, it's a complete referral and not a partial referral. Probably we have to look at things like the post-standstill clauses in these cases, or if there's a need to make parallel notifications in the member states to avoid problems in the timing of this new possible system. 3 minutes, okay. So going to the last issue regarding the public consultation, which is minority shareholdings, we've seen that Almunia's recent speeches in recent times have talked about a possible enforcement gap regarding these structural links, so minority shareholdings which do not give control of the acquiring company, but do give some influence on the acquired, the target company. Also, because there is an inconsistency between jurisdictions, we have the UK, who can look at these minority shareholdings with a wider definition. It's an optional control, but with a wider definition of the possible materially influence on the target company. We have Germany and Austria with clear thresholds of 25%, giving a decisive, not a decisive, but a competitively significant influence on the target, which allows them to assess these minority shareholdings, but it's not the same for most of European member states and for, in particular for the Commission. And a clear case is the Ryanair Aer Lingus case, where the Commission first rejected the merger, opposed to the merger, but the 29.4% that Ryanair had on Aer Lingus was a minority shareholding, with the Court of Justice said that merger control of the European Commission could do nothing about it. It could not force Ryanair to divest that minority shareholding, even though Aer Lingus was asking for that solution to the conflict. And at the same time, the UK started an investigation because it was allowed to look at that minority shareholding, which in fact creates, they're looking at that because the process is still ongoing, that could create competition concerns in some of the lines. So what the paper looks at is the possible design of this minority shareholdings issue. Is it necessary to have really a compulsory notification system, so all of the minority shareholders would be looked at? That's a widespread, an exhaustive study of structural links, or should we go to a voluntary regime, in which case we could have a transparent system where the parties could be obliged to inform of the most important acquisition of these minority shareholdings, the markets, the parties, etc., and that would be published in the official journal or in the website, and third parties could say if there's competition concerns or not, or if the parties can continue with the acquisition of minority shareholdings, but the Commission could intervene. That is giving discretion to the Commission, which I think is Mr. Almunia's preference in these different options. But the paper is quite interesting because it assesses the horizontal effects of minority shareholdings, how you internalize the profit of the target company, even if you only have a 15% or a 10% stake in that company, how there can also be coordinated effects because of the information flows, exchanges flows. But there are many questions surrounding this issue, and I think this will give a big debate in the following months. The consultation is open until 12th of September, I think, but it's an issue that has already been discussed by the Member States and Commission for the last years. And just to finish, I wanted to show you, for example, why this is an important issue in Spain. If you look at this recent article in the Financial Times from 10th of June, you can see that very large companies are really all tangled or interconnected to these minority shareholdings. We have banks, we have electricity utilities, telecoms, etc., all of them linked to these minority shareholdings. So it's really an issue. It's an issue that we have also looked when we looked at other concentrations and there were already pre-existing minority shareholdings, we could act on those minority shareholdings, and we did act. We asked for remedies of divestiture of those minority shareholdings, but we cannot look at them alone, only if they are part of another merger. So that's just what I wanted to tell you. Thank you very much.